Can a young black waitress really outsmart a billionaire with a single skill he thought she didn't have? Lila Thompson walked quietly through the polished floors of the luxurious restaurant, her tray steady in her hands. She had served here for 3 years, always polite, always unnoticed, yet tonight something felt different. Daniel Carter, the arrogant CEO known for his wealth and prejudice, sat at the corner table with his entourage, laughing loudly at his own jokes. Marcus Hill smirked beside him, clearly amused by Daniel's habit of belittling anyone who didn't fit his idea of high society. Lila approached their table to take their order, her calm composure masking the flutter of nerves in her chest. Daniel looked her up and down, his eyes narrowing as if assessing a challenge rather than a waitress. "Hey," he said loudly, drawing the attention of the entire restaurant, "I bet you can't speak Chinese." Lila froze for half a second, then smiled politely. Daniel laughed at her hesitation, assuming she was intimidated. "I'll even wager $500,000 that you can't," he said, his tone dripping with arrogance and subtle racism. Restaurant guests paused their conversations, some curious, some judgmental, some eager to witness humiliation. Lila straightened, her confidence shining through. She knew she could do it, but she also knew the stakes were more than money. They were about proving respect. Sophia Lane, the manager, watched silently from across the room, her eyes filled with concern yet admiration for Lila's poise. Daniel waved his hand dismissively, certain he would win, while Marcus chuckled, clearly anticipating a spectacle. The restaurant hummed with tension, guests whispering, cameras on phones ready to capture the unfolding drama. Lila's heart beat steadily as she quietly whispered to herself, preparing to turn this insult into an opportunity. The room seemed to hold its breath as she opened her mouth and spoke in flawless Mandarin, each word clear, confident, and precise. Daniel's laughter died instantly, replaced by shocked silence, his face paling as everyone realized he had underestimated her. The guests leaned forward, astonished, murmuring among themselves about her unexpected talent. Sophia stepped forward subtly, offering a proud, approving glance that Lila returned with a small nod. Lila's calm voice had shifted the energy in the room. She was no longer just a waitress. She was the center of attention, her dignity intact, her intellect undeniable. Daniel tried to recover, stammering as he searched for a retort, but the embarrassment was obvious. The entire room seemed to tilt, the balance of power subtly shifting toward Lila as whispers of respect replaced the earlier snickers. Guests who had doubted her now looked at her with awe, realizing that appearances could deceive and talent could come from anywhere. Lila finished her interaction with a polite bow and returned to the side, leaving Daniel and Marcus flustered. Sophia quietly mouthed, "Well done," and Lila responded with a small smile, knowing this was only the beginning of something greater. The scene left everyone in suspense, eager to see what she would do next and how Daniel would react. Comment your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. The air in the restaurant was thick with tension as Daniel Carter sat back in his chair, his eyes narrowing and lips pressed into a tight line, clearly humiliated by Lila Thompson's flawless Mandarin. Marcus Hill leaned closer, whispering something Daniel barely heard, but his smug smirk betrayed both curiosity and disbelief. Lila moved gracefully between tables, attending other guests as though nothing had happened, but every step she took was measured, full of quiet confidence, her heart still racing from the confrontation. Sophia Lane observed from a distance, noting how the restaurant guests were now divided, some murmuring their admiration, some whispering judgmental remarks, uncomfortable at being proven wrong. Daniel waved a dismissive hand, trying to save his pride. "Well, that was a lucky guess, right?" he said, his tone forced, but no one believed him. He could feel the eyes of the room on him, witnessing the collapse of the image he liked to project. A man untouchable, dominant, unquestioned. Marcus tilted his head, intrigued by Lila, realizing he had underestimated her intelligence and composure. Guests whispered in disbelief, some even taking out their phones to record the unexpected spectacle, their reactions ranging from shock to admiration. Lila paused near Daniel's table, smiling politely as she served water to another guest, her calm demeanor a sharp contrast to his flustered arrogance. Sophia walked over subtly, offering a quiet nod of encouragement that Lila acknowledged with a small smile, grateful for the silent support. Daniel's mind raced, trying to regain control, his ego bruised by the realization that he had publicly misjudged someone based solely on race and occupation. Marcus leaned forward slightly, curiosity overtaking his pride. "So you speak other languages too?" he asked, almost incredulous. Lila glanced at him, her eyes steady. "Yes, I speak 5 languages fluently," she replied softly but clearly, her words carrying weight and confidence that silenced any further mockery. Daniel's face tightened, the humiliation growing as whispers of admiration spread among the restaurant guests. They were no longer just observers, they had witnessed a shift, a subtle but undeniable challenge to the stereotypes and social hierarchies that Daniel so heavily relied upon. Sophia's discreet glance at Lila conveyed pride and quiet astonishment at how composed and dignified she remained under pressure. Marcus, still intrigued, leaned back, reflecting on his earlier assumptions as the restaurant buzzed with speculation about Lila's hidden talents. Daniel clenched his fists under the table, realizing that his arrogance had blinded him and the room's energy had shifted. He was no longer in control. Guests who had previously whispered judgment now spoke in tones of awe, inspired by Lila's poise and intelligence. Lila moved gracefully back to the kitchen, her head held high, aware that she had not only defended her dignity but also challenged perceptions. The scene left everyone on edge, eager to see how Daniel would react next and whether he could recover his pride. Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to witness what happens in Chapter 3. The moment Daniel Carter realized Lila Thompson could speak multiple languages flawlessly, a cold fury settled over him, his face rigid with disbelief and bruised ego, but he refused to show outright defeat in front of the restaurant guests. Lila moved with quiet elegance, balancing trays of food and drinks, all the while aware of the tension thickening the air, yet she kept her head high, her calm demeanor a silent challenge to Daniel's arrogance. Sophia Lane observed every detail, noting how the previously skeptical guests had shifted their attention entirely to Lila, whispers spreading like wildfire as more diners realized that Daniel had been completely proven wrong. Marcus Hill, still leaning back with a mixture of curiosity and subtle admiration, finally spoke. "So you can speak French as well, correct?" Lila paused slightly, her eyes steady, and replied in perfect French, leaving Marcus momentarily stunned, his pride clashing with intrigue. Daniel's fingers drummed angrily against the table, trying to regain composure, but the room's energy had shifted. The whispers and glances no longer centered on his wealth or status, but on Lila's talent, her dignity, and her unshakable confidence. The restaurant guests, representing society itself, began murmuring, some impressed, some questioning their own prejudices, all silently acknowledging that the assumptions made about Lila based on her race and occupation had been entirely misguided. Sophia approached subtly, placing a reassuring hand on Lila's shoulder, and the brief contact conveyed solidarity and quiet pride, reinforcing Lila's composure. Daniel attempted to laugh off the tension, his voice faltering as he said, "Well, that's impressive for someone in your position," but the condescension rang hollow, every guest recognizing the awkwardness behind the facade. Lila smiled politely. "Thank you, sir. I believe everyone deserves to be underestimated, but skills speak for themselves," she replied calmly, her words precise and deliberate, sending a ripple of admiration across the room. Marcus whispered to a colleague, "I never expected this. She's brilliant," and the comment only intensified Daniel's frustration, his arrogance unable to contain the growing awareness that he had misjudged her. Guests who had initially been judgmental now leaned forward, captivated by Lila's intelligence, poise, and humility, their disbelief slowly transforming into genuine respect. Daniel's face turned red, both from anger and embarrassment, as he realized that his attempts to assert dominance were failing spectacularly. The social hierarchy he relied on crumbling before his eyes. Sophia maintained her watchful stance, carefully supporting Lila without drawing unnecessary attention, while Lila continued her duties, every movement precise, every smile calm, a living testament to quiet strength and resilience in the face of prejudice. The air was charged with suspense as Daniel's mind raced, contemplating how to reclaim control without further humiliation, and the guests waited with bated breath to see what he would do next, fully aware that the power dynamics had irrevocably shifted. Marcus, intrigued and impressed, finally whispered, "She's not just a waitress, she's extraordinary," and the words echoed around the tables as a silent truth none could ignore. The tension lingered, but Lila had firmly established herself as someone to be reckoned with, her calm intelligence piercing through arrogance, prejudice, and assumptions alike. Comment your thoughts below and make sure to subscribe to follow the next chapter, where the stakes rise even higher. Lila Thompson stood at the center of the restaurant, a calm pillar amid the murmuring crowd, the suspense from the last round of revelations still hanging thick in the air, and she felt the weight of every gaze fixated on her, some skeptical, others quietly admiring, but none could deny her aura of quiet power and intelligence. Daniel Carter, his pride thoroughly bruised, tried to regain his dominance, his eyes darting around to gauge which guests were watching most closely. Yet every glance he stole confirmed that Lila had become the focal point of admiration, and the whispers of astonishment only intensified his frustration and disbelief. Sophia Lane moved subtly behind Lila, her hand briefly touching her shoulder as a gesture of encouragement, silently signaling that she believed in Lila's abilities and character, and that support gave Lila an extra layer of confidence to face the arrogant CEO who had tried to humiliate her. Marcus Hill, sitting with a mixture of curiosity and respect, leaned forward to whisper to a fellow investor, "I underestimated her, she's beyond impressive," while Lila's voice, calm and measured, continued to captivate the room as she smoothly transitioned from Chinese to French to Italian, and then to German, leaving even the most condescending guests murmuring in disbelief, questioning their own assumptions about intelligence, class, and appearances. Daniel's face flushed, a mixture of anger and embarrassment clouding his features as he tried to interject, his attempt to assert power falling flat, because Lila had already claimed the respect of everyone present, and every movement she made was precise, dignified, and impossible to challenge. The restaurant guests, representing society itself, watched closely, their initial judgmental expressions replaced with awe, some nodding subtly in recognition of Lila's skill, while others quietly re-evaluated the prejudices they had unconsciously held, the atmosphere shifting from one of superiority and mockery to one of admiration, tension, and profound realization. Lila paused for a moment, a serene smile forming, and addressed Daniel directly. "Sir, assumptions are easy to make, but understanding comes from seeing the truth, not judging appearances." And the words, simple yet powerful, cut through the arrogance like a scalpel, leaving Daniel momentarily speechless and forcing the crowd to recognize the depth of her wisdom beyond mere linguistic talent. Sophia, seeing the effect, allowed herself a brief nod, silently proud, while Marcus clapped lightly, acknowledging that Lila had not only won the unspoken bet, but had also transformed the perception of everyone present, subtly reshaping the social dynamics that had unfairly favored wealth and status over skill and character. Daniel, cornered by the undeniable reality of Lila's talent and poise, could only manage a forced smile, the reality of his misjudgment settling heavily upon him, while the guests erupted into soft applause, celebrating Lila's dignity, intelligence, and unshakable composure, a true lesson in humility, resilience, and the fallacy of prejudice. The air of the restaurant, once tense and judgmental, was now filled with respect, realization, and the quiet acknowledgement that talent and character are never defined by color, position, or assumptions, and Lila, with her calm confidence, had ensured that this truth would not be forgotten. Comment below your thoughts on Lila's brilliance. Hit subscribe to see more stories of courage and intelligence overcoming prejudice. And remember, never judge a book by its cover, because real strength often hides in the most unexpected places.